And, as I remember that wasn't a really good show. It was nowhere in the ratings. It got canceled after two seasons. It was just like, a play box for Steven Spielberg and all of his friends. And there we go. Sorry.
We're live.
Yeah, we're live. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I was, it's like, come on, guys, stick with what you're good at and quit trying to be Hollywood wannabes here. And
I
anyway.
could agree more, So we'll talk a little bit about that. And so got some good things here to discuss.
We'll play Mr. Intro here real quick and get that excitement out of the way. And here we go. And we're back from the intro and live. I'm Steve Sande from Apple World today, and with me is Mr. Marty Edwards, who appeared to be muted there, but he's no longer muted. How are you doing, Marty?
Doing fine. It's wonderful here. 88 degrees yesterday, about 80, close to it today, but I understand you haven't had weather like that.
No, we had snow, our first snowstorm yesterday, which we expected in October, so it was not surprising. But I tell you, it's so depressing when you have your flowers are still out, your rose bushes are still blossoming, and then you have a snowstorm that comes in and goes, we're going to dump a couple inches of snow on you. It got down to, I think, like 25 or 26 last night, and today it warmed up. So what can you say?
We haven't had anything like that. Back in September, we actually had one night it got down to 48, but last night and night before last, it never dropped below 70. We're really having summer weather, and it's a little late to be this warm, but I'll take it. And so I'm glad.
Well, we always joke around here that, if it doesn't snow or rain throughout October, it's going to do it on Halloween night when all the kids are out in their little costumes and they're going to get soaked. So that's, kind of traditional here in the state of Colorado. But anyway, we've got a couple fun things not only to talk about, but to show you tonight. Of course, we're a couple weeks after the Apple announcements. Last week, I believe it was, we talked about our pros and cons on some of the new Apple products. Tonight, just for grins, I've got a flight simulator program. And you're probably saying, airplane flight simulator? No, it's actually a drone simulator program. And it's because eventually I want to buy a kind of pricier drone, one that has more performance than the two that I have. The two that I have are one I bought, one I got for testing, and both of them are perfectly adequate, but they don't go really high, they don't go real fast, they don't go far, and they don't have what we refer to as 360-degree gimbals, where they can kind of point it or zoom in and do all the rest of that.
Is this where I say more power?
More power.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of preparing myself. I don't think I'm going to buy anything this year, but what I want to do is I'm not a gamer. I'll put it that way. And I know a lot of gamers, they can get themselves on like a drone simulator, or even, a drone right out of the box, and they're flying it, no problem. I don't have that hand-eye coordination. So I decided, so I'm going to get this simulator program and I'm going to give it a try, and I'm going to kind of get that hand-eye coordination and get the muscle memory built up before I crash a $1,200 drone. So it makes sense. But anyway, before we go into that, I loved your post today,
Well,
Marty.
thank you. I appreciate that.
That was wonderful. And what I'm talking about here is we had a post on the site, and I'm going to make sure I get the exact title that we had on there. But basically, I mean, it was great. It was an Apple tax. I'll gladly pay it. And I'm going to let you
Right
here because, you know, I read the post and I said, I can't disagree with this. This is what I've been trying to explain to people for 33 years. And you said it perfectly in this post. It was great.
Well, I appreciate it and got a lot of good feedback. My first feedback, my wife read it after I posted. She said, that's a good article. And so I appreciated that. And I got some readers comment. One said it was a great article, and I humbly appreciate that. But it was written from the heart. Basically, what it was, you know, we always hear people, and I use the phrase, see the phrase a lot. I don't use it, but I see the phrase a lot that there's an Apple tax. And obviously, people mean that Apple users pay a premium for their products. And a lot of people feel we overpay. And their products are higher than other products. I meant, you know, here I've got the iPhone 7 from last year. It's the jet black, 256. I think it was $950 approximately. So we're still talking right at $1,000 for a phone. But what I basically said was, you know, the perks that we get. I didn't use that, but I try to close out every example with, yes, I'll gladly pay the Apple tax. I gave two examples. One I've already mentioned on the show, but my wife's first edition Apple Watch had the back come off. It would come off daily and couldn't put it back on. So I fired up on the phone. There's an Apple support app, made a appointment at the nearest Apple store, which for us is 73 miles. So it's a really an event when we go. We have to take the day, but we usually eat out and get steak when we go. So it's okay. So, well, we make it an event. Yeah. There's usually a steakhouse nearby or something Mexican we love. But anyway, we went, they saw our watch, said, yeah, there's a problem. We'll send it off. This was Monday. On Wednesday, we got a FedEx truck pulled into the drive, got a brand new Apple Watch, not just new, not refurbished, but upgraded to the next model, the Series 1, which went from a single core to a dual core. Yeah, we pay an Apple tax, but it's one I'll gladly pay for service like that. And the second thing I mentioned last week, I discussed why I returned the Apple TV. It's a great product, but I had basically brand new Chromecast Ultra and a lot of overlapping there. But when and if this Chromecast goes out, I'll probably reorder the Apple TV. But it's a great product, and you'll love it if you get it. But I returned it, and I opened up the Apple Store app, initiated a return. It came up with a page on the app. I printed it right from my iPhone to this laser printer right here, pasted it on the box, dropped it in a FedEx box, no cost to me whatsoever, got a full refund in about 5 days on the credit card. And so, you know, that's service. They even paid to return it. So they actually took a bit of a loss because they had to pay something to FedEx to get it here and to get it back. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But then I contrasted it with, bought a basic surround sound system about 6 weeks ago. And Saturday we were watching a video on YouTube, but pretty low volume. It just stopped playing. I'm a pretty decent technician, and I did everything I could. Software resets and all wouldn't come back on. So I called the companies under a warranty for a year, and they said they wouldn't issue a refund. I thought, fine, just give me an exact duplicate of what I've got. Well, the best they would do was to give me one that was produced 2 years ago, was a much less unit, did not perform as well, and they wanted me to take that. And I told them I wasn't going to do it. I said, I'll just take the loss and get something else. They said, well, you don't have to do that. I said, look on the internet and find what you want. I said, okay. I said, it's available on Amazon, what I want. He said, well, look on our site. And so he changed when I had it elsewhere. And sure enough, I looked on their site. We'd already hung up, and there it was. But he said it wasn't available, and it may not have been, but I was able to put it in my basket. But I just canceled it, never called them back, lost about $250, but I'll probably find a replacement part. As a matter of fact, now that I'm not going to claim the warranty, I'll probably take it apart. It might just be a a loose connection or something, and might be able to fix it. But, I know if that happened with Apple, I could have taken it into the Apple store. They would have just handed me another one. And so,
Yeah.
I pay more for their products, but you get so much more. It's that peace of mind. I'm not worried at all about this phone going out, because if it does, I know it'll be taken care of. And I was just talking to my wife a while ago. One of the things I didn't mention in the article I've never needed, but if I had trouble, hopefully you and I being bloggers won't, but the Apple Store offers classes. You just sit out in the middle of the
Yeah.
mall. They'll train you. You can get help. You can get refunds. You've got a place to go, a place to turn. And I didn't even mention, except with the exception of today, we've had software updates for the last 3 weeks. And,
Yeah.
people calling Apple tax, that's fine. I'll gladly pay that tax for what we get. So that was the gist of my article. So maybe go there and take a look at it. So,
Well, it's kind of interesting. You brought that up, and I noticed today one of the other sites, and I'm not going to mention who it was, but they had because they're competitors. Not only that, but I think let's just say I have disagreements with some of the other aspects of this person's writings elsewhere. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, this article did a comparison of the Google Pixel 2 XL. The thing that was interesting is this guy says, hey, it's priced higher than the Apple iPhone 8 Plus. It's half as fast, and it lacks a lot of the features that the iPhone 8 Plus has. The Pixel 2 XL starts at $849 for the 64 gigabyte version. The iPhone 8 Plus with the same storage, $799. Then they kind of go through and talk about, Android's operating system so bad at memory management that even simple tasks like opening tasks or apps and multitasking between apps open in the background takes 2 to 4 times as long compared to Apple's iOS. Talking about the Qualcomm processor that's used, that is much, much less powerful than the iPhone 8 Plus, the A11 Bionic that's in there. And it goes on and on like that. But he brings up a really good point at the end too. One thing that we're probably paying for with the quote unquote Apple tax is the fact that Apple isn't taking everything we say literally and using that for marketing research.
right.
They talked about how the Google Pixel 2 has, essentially it's constantly sitting there listening to you, constantly listening. And they're, as this person says, it listens to what shows you have playing, what music you hear, what advertising you're exposed to, and what you say in personal conversations. So you've got that taxed performance because it's constantly sitting there trying to figure out how it can get information back to Google so they can optimize advertising for somebody. And, it gets to be a real pain in the rear. Google was really excited with the fact that they got a very, very high score on their camera. The Pixel 2 photos were much, much better. And this one person, and I don't like using, bad language on this show because it is a family show, but I'll just kind of paraphrase it here. This person, another writer in the Apple world, said that DxO ratings are basically horse pucky. I guess that's a good way of putting it. And he said they assign precise numbers like 96 for photos, 89 for video, 55 for bokeh. But those numbers are, just give a false illusion of scientific rigor. They're pretending to assign objective scientific looking measurement to something that is inherently subjective. And the good point is that, and I have to agree with this person, if you take a look at things like the actual physical quality of the photos when you really zoom in on them. Between the two phones, and I did this with some results around another website. It's fascinating. You see fringing on the Pixel 2 that you don't see on the iPhone. The telephoto shots are amazing. Of course, with the iPhone 8 Plus, you don't have that capability in the Pixel 2 XL. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting article, because it kind of pointed out what, or kind of, I would almost say, increased on what you were saying. Not only, in this particular case, are you paying more than the Apple tax, but you're not getting anything for it. So Apple products end up being a bit of a bargain in many cases.
Well, they really do. And, like with the Pixel, I had to admit it's an intriguing, I don't care about the hardware so much, but if something happens to the phone, I don't have a Google store I can walk into or anything, I know. Yep. Even though I have to drive 73 miles to the Apple store, I can be there in, hour and a half, certainly easily 2 hours, and get it taken care of far quicker than I could sending something off. The only thing I have found, and I want to give a balanced view, is I have found Google's voice recognition far superior for me than Siri. And I've actually got some screenshots of samples. If you don't care, I might show you. My wife and I did a test, and it's a fair test. I got some video because I spoke at the same time to both phones just to see. I have a pretty Southern accent. And Google must have studied South. That's all that I know, to be able to get this. And I think you'll get I'm trying to get I've lost my bar, went to the other monitor here. But
no.
Yeah, I got it back here. Let me just screen share this real quick with you and show you something here.
That sounds great.
And I've got some video of it, but my wife, I think she purchased her accent. She was reared in Arkansas, and she does not have a rural accent whatsoever. I don't know where she trained it, where she bought it, but she can say anything, and Siri will mostly recognize it, but it would not this. Let me share my second desktop with you here. Make sure I don't have anything on here. Oh, let's see. Are you seeing just a bunch of little photos there now?
Yeah.
Okay. Now where we live, I'm getting ready to sow some grass seed. I held both phones. I have an Android phone without a SIM, and I had the iPhone 7. I said, what's Kentucky 31 fescue? That's a grass seed. Well, Google came up and got it first time, showed me pictures of Kentucky 31 fescue bags, where to buy it and everything. It got it perfectly. And I said it pretty plain. I said, what's Kentucky 31 fescue? Just pretty Southern, and everything. It got it perfectly. Apple did not. It said, watch Kentucky 31 past you. That's Siri. And it just would not get it. And it was at the exact same time. I didn't say it to one, then say it to the other. I did them at the same time so that it would know. And I did one more. I said, what's a Bradford pear? Well, Google came up, showed me some things about pears, and it got it perfectly the first time. I've only got a few of these. And then Siri came up with, tell me about Brighton perjury. I asked about a Bradford pear. It had nothing to do with it. If there's one thing but at least I can use Google Voice on the phone. Now, you may not be familiar. There's an old radio team from the 40s that I love. They're from Arkansas. They're called Lum and Abner. They were a radio comedy team. And so I just quickly said, who was Lum and Abner, to Google. It got it, showed me a picture of them, told me all about them. But Apple, almost every time, I've got a screenshot somewhere of this. It said, tell me about Lemon Avenue. It's a school somewhere. And then it said, well, who is laminate? I asked about Lum and Abner, and Siri told me what lamination was. And
Oh
so
man.
it could never get me or my wife on Lum and Abner. But Google did one thing that I noticed what it was doing. Both of them thought I would, when I said Lumman, they thought I was saying lemon. But when Google caught that, I said, it actually said, who is, let me stop sharing here. It said, both of them said, what is, or who is lemon? Both of them got that. But Siri went on to add Avenue for Abner and told me about a school somewhere. But when Google saw that I said the word Abner, it went back and corrected lemon to lum because it was actively learning my context and thought, he said Abner. He must have meant lum and instead of lemon. And it got it right every time. And, I said some really
Wow.
good things about Apple a while ago, and I don't want this to sound bad, but that is the one weakness with Apple right now is Siri. And it's probably just me, but my wife with her trained West Coast accent, West Coast Arkansas, but it couldn't get her either. But I think a lot of it is because Apple doesn't use everybody's voice, and listen all the time. They probably, if I was going to just give, obviously I have no idea, but if they, for every one sample maybe that Apple's able to get, who knows? Google's probably able to get 1,000 samples because they listen all the time and they have such a massive database. So that's probably the reason. And I can live with that. And if
Well,
I
and I think
absolutely
that's
need something, I have Google Voice on the phone. But
yeah, it's funny because I've got it on or got the Google Assistant on my iPhone as well, because I've had situations like you're talking about where you ask Siri, specific question and it gets you wrong each time. And, it could definitely use improvement. Even Amazon's product, it's once again something that's constantly listening, constantly sending that information back to Amazon. But I can tell that it knows a little bit better. It understands language quite a bit better than Siri does.
well, I think you're right. It is listening all the time. And, I've had Android phones and devices around, and I've listened to a lot of the Lum and Abner episodes that I have recorded. Who knows? It may have been listening and knows that Lum and Abner is something that I like and had that in a database. But
It could be.
I do think Siri is one of the weaknesses of Apple, but I think it'll get better. And so,
Of course,
um,
and you and I were talking about this before we went live, but I had a little bit of a rant today in the AWT news update. And my rant was that, of course, you heard that Apple, everybody's all excited because Apple is going to bring back Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories show from the mid 1980s. And I remember that show. I remember being very excited about the fact that Steven Spielberg was going to be doing a show because, up to the mid 80s, he had just had one hit after another. And I remember being very underwhelmed with the show. They had names like you would not believe. Clint Eastwood was one of the directors. Martin Scorsese directed an episode. Brad Bird, who is now one of the big wheels of Pixar, wrote, I think, the first episode or the second episode. So there were a lot of names that were involved there, but the show just lacked a lot of heart. I don't know. I think that was the big thing. And I watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes and I finally said, forget it. I don't like the show. Most other people did too, because in the first year, 85 to 86, first season there, it was number 40 in the listing of TV show ratings. The second year it was 52 and it didn't get renewed. So all of a sudden you're seeing all this hype that Apple is, renewing this cult show, that was so wonderful. And it really wasn't. And I'm sitting here going, you guys, why are you spending so much time and effort on doing stupid TV shows? And, maybe Carpool Karaoke is a fun show. I've never watched it. I don't care to, because half the people I see that are on that show, you know, I have either no knowledge of them, or the knowledge I have is I don't want to listen to that person in a car singing. And it, it's just one of these things. I just go, quit it, guys, before, don't lose attention on what's important, which is to make the best possible products and best possible services. Spend that $1 billion a year that you want to put on stupid TV shows, put it into improving Siri. Figure out a way that you can, maybe go out to rural Kentucky and Tennessee and record a lot of people.
Yeah.
So you can understand. Or, Eastern Colorado, Western Kansas,
I agree totally. I know we've touched upon this, but if Apple's going to have something, it won't be, I don't think it'll be their undoing, but I think it's going to end up being a wrong path that they won't always head down, is all these Hollywood, trying to be a Hollywood studio in their own productions. You've got the best phone in the world. I think the best computers and operating system. Make it even better, shore it up, strengthen it, and just keep producing that, but they don't ask me, but I think with time that, this will show to be a wrong direction for them.
Yeah. And, hopefully they don't blow through $263 billion in the process, but you never know. Companies, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
I had to admit, I was surprised, wasn't it, whenever they paid $3 billion for the Beats, name and everything. Yeah. That's a lot of money for a product.
Yeah. And I think part of that was, just to get the names, and it shows you how good I am there. I can't even remember the names of the people who were involved with that. But.
You talk about not recognizing the people on the shows they produced. We'll be at a checkout line. They'll have all these magazines of so-and-so are back together. And I have to ask my wife, who is that?
Who's that?
I've never heard of them. I'm out of touch, but I don't want to be in touch. You know.
Well, and, I think it's just, I hate to make a political comment, but I think it kind of goes back to, kind of the East Coast, West Coast thoughts as well. It's like anything between California and New York is, well, they're not smart people. They don't know what they're doing.
We're the flyover zone.
Yeah, we're the people who also, didn't elect a certain person that they wanted. Once again, I don't want to be political, but, I think people, they need to pay attention to their product base and, start paying attention to it, or they could lose it. And it really surprises me because Tim Cook, being a Southern boy from Alabama, you'd think he'd have a little bit more sensibility there, but maybe not.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I've thought about that pretty often. I guess you get on the West Coast, and you're right. We do have almost two countries: the coast, and then what's in the middle.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, as long as their products keep working the way that they are, I'll be happy and satisfied. I'm gonna screen share one other thing. Wonder if you've run into this little bug. I don't even know if it is. It may just be me, and it's nothing major to report. I'm just more or less asking. You recognize that website there, I guess.
Never seen it before.
Well, if I download anything or want to save that to my reading list, it won't do it now. But I have had, if I save something to the reading list, let me go to something else. I'll just do this article that I wrote here this morning. I've been having Safari logos sticking all over my computer. Well, it's not going to do it now, so maybe it has. I just wondered if you'd run into that. If I tried to absolutely, download linked file. I don't know if it'll do it. Well, it's not going to do it now, but you see that little apple flying across the screen. I had 4 this morning. They were stuck there, and I could not do anything until I closed out Safari entirely. And I knew it wouldn't work when I tried to show you, but I just wondered if you'd run into that. And I will mention this because you asked me last week if I'd upgrade. This is a 2014 Mac Mini. It was the best thing I've ever done for the Mac Mini ever, was putting it on High Sierra. It runs faster, more stable. I can really tell a difference. So
Interesting.
sorry to demo a little bug that wouldn't bug, so must have fixed itself. So
Well, don't feel bad because I did notice something like that. I think it was Friday or Saturday, but I actually had what looked like almost like a screenshot image that was over on the side of my display. And it was just a little thumbnail. Like I said, it looked like a screenshot. It didn't have any title to it, so I knew it wasn't a screenshot. And I couldn't click on it, I couldn't select it, I couldn't do anything with it. And as you mentioned, when I um, got out of Safari, it disappeared and never came back. So it could be part of the
it sounds
same
like it's
issue there.
akin, little graphical
Yeah,
artifacts are being left behind. And so,
that's weird stuff.
well, they have gone to Metal 2, so there might be some issues in some of their graphics. So
Maybe this is heavy metal
it may
too.
be. Well, before we forget, we didn't even talk about this. You saw the tweet where one of Apple's senior officials basically said, Windows Phone is dead.
Yeah.
And the reason I even mentioned that, now as much as I like iOS, I think it would be good if we had a third player. Windows Phone, the software, nothing like competition to keep driving it. And
Yeah.
I was always hoping. I used a BlackBerry for a long time. I liked the BlackBerry, and so, but now we just got the two big players. And do you think that Google is trying to do what Apple is doing, a closed ecosystem? They pulled non-Google hardware off their site this week. There were some Android Wear watches. They pulled them.
Yeah.
It's Google only.
Yeah, at least they're starting, I think, with the hardware. You've got the Pixel 2, you've got their, Google Pen, you've got all the rest of these things that are coming out. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they left Android as a, kind of a open source project and just said, guess what? You're on your own. You guys want to do anything with Android? Have a great life. Bye-bye. We're not going to do anything with it anymore. And that their eventual idea is to create a new operating system that'll only run on Google hardware.
I can see
Because
that coming. Yeah.
yeah, because that way, then you get into the same situation that Apple has, this wonderful ecosystem where day one of a new operating system being out, 10% of the devices are already upgraded. You can set hardware standards and say, hey, everybody for the last 4 to 5 years can do the following features. Right now, you come up with something like, Google does have something akin to ARKit.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what they call it, but anyway, but it can only run on, I think I remember seeing the numbers like 1.3% of all Android phones, simply because they don't have control over the hardware.
Right.
So if they eventually get control over not only the hardware, but their own operating system, something completely different from Android, they could be a significant player. I
Well, I
think
think they
they could.
could. They certainly have the financial backing, obviously they have the
Yeah.
resources. And, the established, user base is huge with all the Google products. I mean, I use Gmail and everything myself. And so I think I watch a few YouTubers, and a lot of people think that Google could not overtake Apple, but really be serious competition if they can get that closed ecosystem and end up with some
Yeah.
stores or kiosks. That's why I feel that Apple needs to pull back from these other fronts, pull the
Yeah.
troops in, and focus on what they do best, because they're going to be blindsided by someone else, and probably
Well, and
Google.
I'm wondering though if, there's that other party out there that has a lot of hardware. They haven't gotten into the smartphone business yet, but Amazon. And you talk about an organization that could be really, really scary very quickly. Yeah, they don't have stores. Well, they bought Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
And what would it take to maybe take, you know, 60 square feet of each Whole Food store and sell Amazon Electronics products?
Right.
in those locations. They also have the world's best distribution system. And, it could be that, you want to try out a particular project or product in 5 years that click on something in a website and a drone comes by, drops it in your front yard, you try it out. If you like it, you keep it. If not, you press a button and the drone comes, picks it up, and it goes away.
Yeah.
And, it's, they're a scary company. Once again, they're kind of dependent on Android, but, I find it interesting that, they've done all that work on their AI, and I'm not mentioning the name of that AI because I don't want her talking back there. But they've done a lot of work on that AI, and I know a lot of people who say, I'll use it before I will use Siri. And
Right. Well, speaking of
it's
that, what
not
did you think if you watched the keynote? What did you think of that $49 Google Home Mini or whatever they call it?
interesting. I'm not sure I would buy one, mainly because I've got I have literally a stack of speakers around here,
Right.
little Bluetooth speakers and little Wi-Fi speakers. And I need to bundle them up and give them to Goodwill one of these days
Well,
because
I
I
had to
don't
admit,
use any of them.
I was tempted because Google does understand my voice so well. Just plug it in, ask it some things. But, I just ask the phone if I need to. And so I did not. So I don't know. I think, I had never considered Amazon as the third player until you mentioned that. And that is a real possibility. Of course, I've got a Fire tablet over here I'd actually bought for my mother to use. But I'll be honest, the interface was so slow, so sluggish compared to when my mom needs to listen to something. She's will be 87 soon, and often I'll just set her something on the iPad and keep it going for her and everything. I still use iPad first generation for her because it works
Yeah.
better than the latest Amazon Fire.
Yeah, it's
Those
kind of funny when the Fire
cheap and
first came
yeah,
out. I remember one of my coworkers at Tua, who also I wrote quite a number of books with, Erica Sadoon. She and I went, "Wow, a tablet that's going to cost this little. This is great." And so we got all excited about it. We put up a website. We wrote a book about Amazon Fire. First 2 weeks the thing was out, we were trying everything. We wrote these, or actually, I think we wrote 2 books, and they didn't sell at all. And the reason being is I don't think they actually ever, the first generation Kindle Fires, I don't think they sold all that many of them. And you never heard anything about, how many devices were actually sold. It was just there were a lot of complaints, and then they came out with the second generation. But by that time, we had said, forget it. But once again, they're stuck in that same thing. They're using other companies' processors. They're using a fork of Android, and add them all together, and what do you have?
yeah, it's just
Yeah,
sluggish,
very good. Yeah,
Yeah. It once again, the Apple tax is worth it because, like I said, it still is. I still use a first generation iPad, not for a lot, but usually just for my mother to listen to something or watch something, and it works fine, works great. Still on iOS 5, and it can't be updated, which I'm glad it works great. So,
yeah,
and but a lot of life out of the products, they really last. So.
yeah. Well, it's funny because my dad, sadly, he's not able to do a lot with the computer anymore. But he still has one of I think it was first or second generation uh, MacBook Air. And it really surprises me sometimes when he'll ask me a question about something and I bring it up and I do some things with it, how responsive that machine is. It's still running, I don't know, it's quite an old version of the operating system. Hasn't been, I don't think we've been able to do anything past Mavericks on it, but it's still very responsive, and it's just chugging along. Uh, for better or worse.
Well, if you do want to sell, the resale value is,
Yeah.
great. I had an iPhone, I think, 6. I never did do the 6S. I skipped that generation. And I was going to keep it uh, just to run beta software on everything. A young boy at church wanted to buy it. He said he's looking for a phone. And so he offered me 400 for it. And it was just going to sit in the drawer. And
Wow.
he said, uh, I'll tell you what, he said, I think it's worth more than that. I'll pay you more. I said, no, that's enough. And so he was tickled to get it for that, I think it was
Wow.
probably worth it. I had kept it in pristine condition, case and everything. And,
Yeah.
so he gave me $400 cash for it. So the resale value, significant, almost half of this phone, but it hurt a lot. I saw his girlfriend with it, and she'd put a cover on it that had bunny ears hanging off of it and cloth, but so be
Oh,
it. So I can't help
oh, that
it.
poor phone.
Yeah, I know what kind of cover they put on it. So, and of course it's been quite a while since he bought it. So I think at that time it definitely was worth 400 or even pushing 5, because I maxed out. I had the max memory. I don't think bought anything but the max memory I could get. So
Yeah. Yeah, you went with what is your iPhone 7 Plus
yeah,
have?
it's 256 jet black. I want to comment again. I was so glad to get that, but I did get 256. And if you looked right now how much space I've got free, it's still over 200 gig. You'd say, well, why on earth get a 256 with 200 gig free? If I travel and take a trip, and we are going to Minnesota for Apple World Today
Yeah,
in 2
soon.
weeks, and I want to be able to take all the 4K video I want or whatever and pictures and not have to worry about storage. And so that's why I keep around 200 free, because I know I'm not going to get that flashed up your out of memory. So I do
Yeah.
overbuy, because my wife has the 128. They didn't have a 256 available. She has the jet black as well. But I know if she's running a little low, she can airdrop a bunch of stuff over to me because I've got the storage and continue on. So we're both going. So in 2 weeks from tonight, I do plan on doing our broadcast, but I'll be doing it remotely from probably the Hyatt Regency in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Sweet. This will be fun. A
Yeah, I'm
live
looking forward.
remote.
Yeah. And I'll have to, I'll get her set up with Zoom because she'll need to make a guest appearance as well.
I'll have to see how we're going over Christmas. We're going on yet another cruise, and we love cruising. This one is just to see the ship. It's one of Royal Caribbean's really, really, really big ships, Harmony of the Seas. And one of the things that they now advertise is they have a really fast, they say we have really, really fast internet service on our ships. And one thing I'd really love to see is if I could finally do video streaming from one of the ships, because I could do a live remote from the ship. That would be
Yeah.
fun.
Well,
That
yeah,
would be fun.
I hope you can. And I guess what we'll do there is if I send any videos, I'll just send you a few videos and let you post them on whatever media you want to, or just delete them. So I'll do a few
Well, I was
videos, a little
thinking,
blogging. And so,
yeah, and these ships are so large. The last time we didn't even know that we were on a ship, no movement at all. But
yeah,
I was
that's
thinking
unreal.
some of the cruises we've been on, I'd be doing this, you know,
Right.
going back and forth. Hey, before we get too far along here, I'm going to go ahead and do the demo. This is a drone controller. And I actually got this as part of a package for yeah, a flight simulator setup. This is a controller from a company called Fly Sky, and it's a traditional controller that you would use for most high-end drones. A lot of them have a mount on there where you can put an iPad on or iPhone, and you can actually see what the camera sees. But anyway, this is unique in that it actually even has a port on the bottom for hooking up to USB. And the app that I've been using here and playing with is from a company. They call it Zephyr Sim. The name of the company, I've got to remember what it's kind of a funny name for a company. But if you go to Zephyr, ZEPHYR-sim.com, you can get out and take a look at this thing. Oh yeah, and the name of the company that the developers here is Little Arms Studios. And you go, Little Arms? Well, they have a logo that's like a Tyrannosaurus Rex with those little arms. You can't do anything with them. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of start this up. And we'll do a quick screen share if I can find my Zoom window here. Where are we? There we are. Nope, that's the wrong one. Here we are. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share, and I'm probably not going to share any sound, but can you see what I'm seeing right now? I probably see something that says scenario select and the rest of that. I'm going to back out real quick. And what you see here is the opening screen. You can tell it's got my name up there. One thing that's kind of annoying about this app is that it requires you to log in with a password every time, and I ended up using a really long password, so I have to look it up every time. But you can tell, you know, at the beginning here, you've got some really nice animation going on, and you know, the grass is moving here. If I turned up the sound and you were able to hear it from the app, you'd actually hear cars in the background, dogs barking and stuff like that. So it's really well done. The options here that you have, you have visual options. You can actually bring in weather, which means that randomly it'll go ahead and you can get rain, you can get high winds, you can get all these conditions that you may not necessarily want, but they're going to happen anyway. We also have something there to change controller input depending on what you're using. Drone select, they've got a number of drones. Actually, I think this list ought to be larger, but you know, I think they're relatively new. Right now, they've got the DJI Phantom 3, Inspire 1, 3DR Solo, Cyma X5C, the Autel X-Star, which is one I hadn't heard of, Parrot Bebop 2, and then the DJI Mavic, which is one drone that I'm very interested in possibly getting. So you can switch between the different drones, and they say that the physics of the different drones matches you know, what you'd see in actual flight. Now, the scenario select button takes you in. I've already been through this tutorial, so you can tell it's got this nice little orange box there. And I'm in basic training now. The tutorial kind of just tells you how you're going to use the actual controller. You know, it kind of gets you used to flying back and forth and doing things. And basic training is kind of fun because it takes you through individual skills like taking off, landing, turning, doing different things like that, avoiding different things. And then later on, you'll get into actual outdoor things like a hill, a yard, an obstacle course, a community park, and a parking lot, places that you might be flying a drone. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go into basic training here. I'm just going to load this up. And I have to turn on the, oops, sorry, I had one switch in the wrong place there. Cat must have turned it on at one point. Oh, there we go again. Okay, good. Sorry, definitely the cats were playing. But as you can tell here, they've got quite a few different training modules. And the idea is that you go through these until you get an A+ score on every one of them. And you can go back at any time and pick these up. But you can tell you've got, you know, throttle control, and that's basically just, you know, do you understand how the throttle works? Landing, you know, being able to go back and forth and land in targets that move around. Hovering, you know, making sure that you're able to hover in wind. Forward flight, being able to, you know, go somewhere else, and horizontal flight. And I'm going to, just for the heck of it, I'll pick one of the real easy modules here, and that's landing 2. And what you see now is a screen here, and it's basically telling you what to do. You want to land inside of the designated areas. Designated areas are these red rings in this particular case. We have a, whatever the heck you call it, DJI Mavic Pro sitting out there. And to start it up, I'm going to take my joysticks. You can tell there's little orange arrows down at the bottom there telling me what to do. So I'm going to go ahead and move those down. And I just started up my drone. And the interesting thing is the first person view there we are. There it finally showed up. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to fly forward. Oops. And what's interesting is the camera's pointed straight down. I'm going to go ahead and land. That turns green. Now we go back up. We're going to fly back over to this other target. And we're going to land. If you land too hard, you can, of course, break the drone. So it's teaching you that skill, to kind of be good. I didn't get a perfect score. I was a little bit slow there. I got 470 out of 500. If I had done it faster, I would have gotten the full 500. But that's a pretty easy one of the training sessions there. It's telling you average speed, 5.38 miles per hour, average altitude, not great. All these different things. It'll also, when you're doing free flying, it'll tell you if you've got altitude violations. In other words, you're flying higher than you should as a drone pilot. If it's out of your line of sight, like it goes behind a building, you're going to get a violation for doing that, which you could if you were flying a real drone. If you're in a no-fly zone that's been set aside by the FAA, it'll give you a violation there. So, it's really almost like my dad worked on flight simulators for many, many years for United Airlines. And I think that's why I was kind of interested in this. But it's amazing now. I know there are great regular aircraft flight simulators that you can get, but now they're getting to the point that, these companies are able to come out with some pretty impressive tools, I guess you can say, to learn how to fly today's technology. And like I said, I've got a few classes to go through here, but that's what we've got winter for, right? Yeah.
That's pretty amazing software.
Yeah, and like I said, you can add wind, you can change the weather, you can have it be, I'm trying to figure out why that's not coming up there, but usually with, because I probably didn't, let me exit scenario here and I'll go to this thing. Yeah, and I think if I bring up activate weather and go back in there, and let's see, there's scenario select, we'll do basic training again. And I think here I can now go in and it's not letting me pick weather. Maybe I have to get beyond the basic training. But anyway, you should be able to actually fly in snow and rain, do all the rest of those things that you probably are going to have to do in real life. So the package itself, the what they call the professional, or the actual package here. Let me see if I can get the pricing. Yeah, the professional version, which is for individual drone operators, runs on both Windows and Mac. And the controller is beeping at me here, so I better turn it off. But with the controller and the app license, it's $139. If you've already got your own controller, it's $99. Like I said, I think it, in terms of pricing, it's a hell of a lot better to crash a virtual drone that costs you maybe $139 than it is to crash a
Right.
real one that's going to cost you 1,200 plus change for DJI's coverage plan. So anyway, that's it. That's kind of fun. Once again, that's at Zephyr-sim.com that you can look into that. Pretty cool package.
It is. That's pretty amazing. So tell me about this drone you're interested in. So is it a pretty high-end drone?
The Mavic Pro. Well, it's, I have friends who've got the Mavic. I've got friends who have the Phantom 4 Pro, and there's a lot of debate out there. A lot of the Phantom 4 Pro folks say, well, this is more robust. It's got, this feature and that feature. It's heavier. It's able to do this, that, and the other thing. The Mavic Pro was designed to fold down to a very, very small size. But then it has a lot of, I guess you could say, help me features. For instance, it takes off on its own. You can practically pre-program a flight. It's got close to 30 minutes flying time. Up to 4 miles, I think, that it can actually
Wow.
fly. It does, it's got this return to pilot function. So if anything goes wrong during the flight, like it says, hey, wait a second, I seem to be losing signal. It'll go back, and based on where you were at the beginning of the flight, it'll fly back and land autonomously. It also has, a lot of different functions for taking photos. There's one it flies very slow and very steadily in what they call tripod mode, except your tripod could be 400 feet up in the air. DJI right now probably has the, I guess you could almost call them the Apple of the drone world. They have a small one that's $499 that's called the Spark, but the Mavic has a lot more, I guess you could say, professional features. And let me share their webpage with you. This is at dji.com. There we go. I'll share screen. But this shows what the device looks like when it's folded. When you unfold it, these arms come out. The propellers actually are just loose, and when you spin up the motors, it actually snaps them into position there. But the big thing about this is you've got this glass enclosed gimbal here that you've got just a really amazing lens. A lot of manufacturers have come up with neutral density filters for these. They've come up with, what do you call the doggone things? Polarizing filters, different things like that. So some pretty impressive stuff. I talked about that return to home or return to pilot function. As they say here, if you get into a situation where, let's say you're flying low, it's quite a ways away, and all of a sudden the batteries die on your controller, it'll go, we've got a problem here. It'll go up to altitude, and then it will fly back. And if it senses any obstacles in the way, it will actually fly over them to make sure that it doesn't crash into anything. It does 4K video. It's got a 12 megapixel camera built into it, kind of like what we've got in our iPhones. It does this ultra HD video, 4K video at 30 foot per second. No electronic image stabilization is used. What they use is actual physical image stabilization, using mechanical parts there. So it's quite the device there. It's nothing like their enterprise models, like these guys used for crop dusting, but then I think these are a little expensive too. So
I would imagine so.
yeah, just on the high side there. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I'm kind of getting interested in that. Everybody's got to have some hobby that they
Oh
can
yeah.
use to empty their wallet. And I've really gotten to enjoy flying some of the smaller drones. Like I said, I've had the hover camera passport for a while. I love that little thing. It's just, excellent software. They did a really, really good job. And it actually has a lot of the functions that you would find on the Mavic Pro. The one that I reviewed last week, which is the Moment drone, has a lot of work that they need to do with it. And I'm really kind of concerned about that. They are currently in crowdfunding on Indiegogo. They're ready to ship. Apparently, they were just trying to, fund development of a couple other things. And I'm hoping that part of that development is actually getting their software and their firmware on the device so it works worth a darn. But it's kind of an interesting world right now with these little flying devices.
Yeah. Well, that you'd be able to do some neat footage of things for the site or whatever you want.
Yeah, we could, if we ever get invited to the, of course, they probably wouldn't actually let us fly at Apple Park, but we could stand outside and peek over the fence.
Yeah.
Something like that. Or if we, one of these days, if Apple introduces some new magical product that nobody expected, and we have one of those situations where there are lines 5 miles long, I can fly the drone over them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's something I've never become interested in, a drone, but who knows? I'll just watch other people's videos of it for now. So,
well, it's so weird about it. I really I grew up with a dad who flew, made and flew airplanes. In fact, I have a picture here. This is that I'll have to hold up. This is him as a teenager. And you can see he's got a model airplane there.
oh yeah,
He's very interested in those. And of course, when I was a kind of a kid, I don't know, something about those small gas engines and big propellers there. I was always worried that it was going to cut a finger off. So
yeah,
I had some real concerns about that. I went into model rocketry instead and became a, kind of got into the national competitions and all that. And that was a lot of fun. But when I started seeing drones and the fact that they have a lot of intelligence behind them, they actually have a function. They can take great pictures. They can, take wonderful video. I said, I'm interested in these. And now I'm, as I'm getting used to them, I find them even more fun. So occasionally I may bring some of that stuff up on here. That's not the reason for the show, but occasionally when we, if I have some good footage, we'll share it with everybody.
yeah. Well, it does sound good. It is quite interesting. So, the only models I ever had, do you remember you could go into dime stores and buy those little balsa wood planes that were gliders,
man,
or the rubber band propeller on them?
Rubber band ones.
Yeah.
Oh. And you know what was amazing about those things is if you got them nicely balanced, you could get them to climb way the heck up there, and then they would just glide slowly down. Those were fun.
I think the store in our little town, the town only listed about 200 people, but there was a grocery store and he'd always carry them. Maybe a quarter, 35 cents for the glider.
Yeah.
Oh, no telling how many of those I went through. They were fun. I enjoyed them.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the name of those things. I can, think of the package that they came in.
Oh, yeah.
And those things were just wonderful. They were great.
Yeah, that brings back a lot of memory. And so I was looking up some of them here. They still sell them nowadays, but
they're probably made out of styrofoam now.
Yeah, probably so. Oh yeah, Starfire. I remember that. And so some of them would have they'd get up and a little guy would parachute out of it. I'm seeing some pictures of them.
They even had the ones, they had just the gliders, and then they had the gliders with the propeller, and then they had the gliders with the propeller with the little wire and plastic wheel landing gear.
I had some of those, yes. It was so neat. So Yeah, you
Those
took me
were
down memory
great.
lane there. Yeah.
You know, I don't think I've thought about those in probably 40 years, but they were great. They were so much fun. And those I didn't mind because, you know, there wasn't a lot of damage I could do to myself. Like I
No.
said, for some reason, those little, remember Cox was a company that made a lot of plastic model control line airplanes. And those things, they were loud. You know, people think drones are loud. Nothing compared to the one of those little
Well,
049 engines, or, you know, some of the larger engines that they had. I had friends who in, you know, in junior high and high school who got into the real early days of radio control airplanes. And it always amazed me just how much money they would spend on those things. And now, you know, you look at, you know, the prices. Like I said, this little controller runs about $40. It's got about, I think, a 2 or 3 mile range on it. So amazing how stuff has changed.
it is.
You know, all you need to do is open a factory in somewhere in Shenzhen, China. You start making real
Yep.
inexpensive stuff. Well, do you have anything else for us tonight, or
Well, I
shall?
think that's it. I did. I'm gonna save this at least till next week. I did download the game Flower, and I played it a
Oh,
little bit. So, but I'm gonna wait on that because we're well over an hour, and so I'm gonna save that. I want to work with it a little bit more. So,
I can't wait, and I want you to give a full demo of that because, you know, having seen the videos for the game,
all right.
it looks like it's just one of those things that you could get drawn into for hours. It'll be interesting to see your take on that.
Well, I will say this: my wife, of course, being family sharing, we both got the app because I bought it and she got it too. She said, I didn't want to stop playing." I was quoting her.
Wow.
So that's high accolades there. Your
Yeah.
phone gets quite warm. I tell you, it's graphically intensive, but it really is stunningly stunning visually. So show
And
some
that's
things
another
next
thing.
week. So
Yeah, you know, I'm glad that, you know, these are apps too that I don't think they could ever write for the Android world,
I don't think so.
which
You
is,
know, a common theme, we might address this another time. Everybody uses both or goes back and forth, said the quality of apps on Android is just not as good. And they're not. Like you and I've written, we both have, I think, or talked about on the show here, the Weather Underground app. It's
yeah.
available on both, but it doesn't look nearly as good. The lines are bigger and bolder, or they're more blocky
Hmm.
looking on Android. It just doesn't look nearly as good, and not all the features are quite available. So they just, I feel like sometimes slap together the Android apps. You know,
Hmm.
they just don't have the quality.
Well, we'll that gives us something else to discuss
Yeah.
next week, and hopefully we're still trying to get this guy named Dennis Sellers. See, you know, we haven't seen him in a while, but
No,
uh,
I don't even know if he exists. He may just be now like a mythical, like Sasquatch or something.
you know, maybe he's set up a bot, and the bot is
Yeah.
writing all of the articles now.
Well, they're doing a good job, you know. So
Yeah, he's sitting back, you know, or going out for runs and having a good
yeah,
time, and his bot is writing. You
maybe.
know, I want to hire that bot.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for watching the show, and we will definitely, you know, I'm sure we're going to have a fun one next week as well. I really want to see Flower in action, so can't wait to see that. And let's see, what else do we have coming up next week? That'll be the 17th. You know, we're getting close. We're like 2 weeks away from being able to actually order our iPhone 10s. So
Yeah, I look forward to seeing that in the wild. People videoing it and taking it apart, and that's
shooting
I'm
it,
looking. Yeah,
putting it in a microwave.
yeah. I
I
don't
always
care as
wondered
much
about
for
that.
those videos, but I always enjoy seeing the speed comparisons and just pushing them to their limits. So it's going to be a fun couple of weeks, three. So
Yeah,
I wonder what the odds, how easy it'll be for you to get one come November 3rd.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed there. I'm hoping, you know, as one of the iPhone upgrade program members, I'm hoping that Apple makes it easy. I know last year there was some people on the program who were not real happy about the place in line that they got. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I would just much rather, order it online and have them deliver it than stand at a store.
I have no hope of getting one. I meant, because we do have a regional carrier. They usually run about 2 weeks later, and they won't have any available. So I'll get something next year.
Well, and who knows, they may have, maybe it'll, we had bend gate on one iPhone. We had antenna gate on another iPhone. Maybe we'll have break gate.
Well, they got swell gate now.
Yeah, swell gate.
Yeah, swelling the phones a little. So.
Craziness.
I guess if transistors go bad, it could be gate. At least have to know a little bit of transistors there. So
yeah, the good one there. We're going to give you, is it a, what is it? PNP, NPN, or NAND gate, or Anyway, enough nerdism here. Thanks for watching again. Like I've said many times, whenever we do a video, I ask if you like our show, or if you like what you see and you'd like to see more of it, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. And also be sure, if you haven't done it before, to go ahead and click that subscribe button. The more subscribers we have, the more we can let you know what's coming out. I think we're going to have some surprises coming soon in terms of video. So keep your eyes open. For Apple World Today, I'm Steve Sande. That's Marty Edwards. Mm-hmm. We will see you next week. Same time, same channel, same pretty much everything.
Yep.
Well, maybe not everything, but
I'll be here. So
me too.